It's time for the First Community Credit Union Blues postgame show.
Presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company on 101 ESPN.
To our fourth period extended post-game coverage on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. It's brought to you by First Community Credit Union, powered by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company. Joe Vitale to my left after the Blues fall to the Golden Knights 4-1. We'll hear from Jim Montgomery in just a bit. We'll hear from some of the players down in the Blues locker room. Grant Francis down there currently. We'll have our final look. We're also live up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. And Joe, you and Curbs just broke it down for our listeners. And, you know, I was talking to Amy Markscores and Grant Francis up here during the game. And, you know, it doesn't feel as bad as that Washington Capitals loss because that one was out of hand very quickly. In this one, it felt like the Blues were in it until those back-to-back goals. But just the overall fight that Jim Montgomery was talking about, the overall attitude that he was talking about, it felt like you didn't really see it tonight after Vegas scored that first goal.
No, you didn't. I think it was close to the Washington Capitals performance, though. You know, it was a deflating loss. You know, there's different ways to win and lose in this league. And I look at the Capitals game and this game, and these are the ones that are just really hard to swallow, you know, because you're going to lose games. I mean, look what happened this past week against the Seattle Kraken. You know, you maybe get the raw side of the coin there with an Eberle goaltender interference that allows that goal to continue, and then you push it to overtime. You lose, of course, Shane Wright scores. Those ones are going to happen. Your goaltender plays well. You play well enough to win a game against a good team. And those are the ones that don't necessarily keep you up at night. You know, I think for Jim Montgomery, these are the ones that really get his head to really scratch and say, what are we? What are we doing? And where do we begin to claw out of this thing? You know, for me, Alex, it's a team that I think we're feeling a little bit of the fragileness of game to game. You know, you look at last night's game, of the 5 goals, you know, 4 of them, and this is in regulation, of the 5 goals in regulation, you know, 4 of them, Jim Montgomery said that's on us. It's the turnovers, it's the carelessness with the puck, it's puck management. You know, especially the 2 goals there in the third period. You had a 2-goal lead, and you mismanaged the puck twice, and then both of them end up in the back of your net because you give high-quality scoring chances to players right in front, right? I mean, to me, that's that kind of puck mismanagement.
Yeah.
So now you go from that game to less than 24 hours later, you're back on the ice. And this is a group that, to me, you already have that kind of mismanagement in the back of your head. And this is where game-to-game exposure, game-to-game themes continue. And then Matthew Kessel, you know, he's trying to make a play to Dylan Holloway in the first period. And Holloway's looking up the ice for something. He's looking for maybe an outlet or where he's going to go with it. Doesn't expect for that puck to come to him, and Kessel delivers it to him without meeting eyes. Turnover, Brandon Saad on the board. And it's just 1 goal. Up to that point in the game, I think the shots were 8-8. Yeah. You know, the Blues, I think they actually started very well. You know, considering the fact that they played last night and Vegas didn't. This was a really even matchup. This first 10 minutes really could have gone either way, in my opinion. But that turnover, what happens is, at least what I saw, is that it leads to the goal against. Now you're behind 1-0, and it's the way you allowed it. Again, a careless turnover in the D zone. We just talked about this. Yeah. And it's already hurting you once more. And not to mention a goal on the ice between the goaltender's legs, which, again, it's a sneaky shot. Not saying it's a bad goal, and Joe Hofer should have had it necessarily, because you give Brandon Saad a high-danger chance right in front of him. But it's one of those that maybe you don't get that save after a turnover. All of a sudden, that kind of trauma trigger comes back, right? Yeah. We call it the old trauma trigger, where it's like, oh, boy, here we go again. That is a real feeling on the bench. And I sense it for this team tonight. It's that trauma trigger of, here we go. And it could go positively, and when things aren't going well, it really does spin in the wrong direction. And Alex, from that moment on, they take a penalty. Of course, Vegas scores on the power play. And the Blues really never got their traction back in this game. They were really out of it from that moment on, and it's a shame. It's a shame they didn't have that fight back, but I do believe it's from the past games and how things are not going their way. It's all of a sudden you see the same plays happening, and you kind of get that feeling like, gosh, here we go again.
Which, you know, to that point, after that that power play goal went in, I guess it's really after that first goal went in, the Blues didn't have a shot on goal for the final 10 minutes and 51 seconds of that first period. They then didn't have a shot on goal 7 minutes and 46 seconds to start the second period, and then they got their few shots. They started to gain momentum like you were talking about on the broadcast, and then they didn't get their first shot on goal in the third period until the 10-minute and 27 mark, or 10-minute and 27-second mark. And what's crazy about that and what you just said, Joe, is it felt like that Vancouver Canucks shootout loss, what was that, 6 games ago? That felt like they were building. That felt like all of their past mishaps were behind them. It was a game that got out of hand, but it was common mistakes. It's like, okay, we tighten these up. Then you played Edmonton, or I'm sorry, you played Columbus, and it was, okay, this Columbus game got out of hand, but you still felt like they were building. Then Edmonton happened. Then it was the Capitals setback. How do you pull yourself out of those trauma triggers if you're players? Because I'm sure people would question the leadership, but these guys have been through this before. They know what they're doing, and it just seems like it's something that is difficult to pull yourself out of.
Well, I think by process of elimination, I think Jim Montgomery is, I really believe they're going to be faced with something new now heading on the road. You know, you have personnel. You have the players in front of you. And, you know, the Blues aren't really hit with the injury bug like the Vegas Golden Knights are. Right. I mean, the Golden Knights, they don't have Pietrangelo for the rest of the year. They're missing their top goaltender, Nathan Hill. You don't have Mark Stone. You don't have William Karlsson. I mean, there's a lot of big bodies out for Vegas. So I'm not going to sit here and say that the Blues are dealing with uncontrollables of just having guys out. I mean, Jake Neighbors is a big miss. He's a big energy spark plug for your team. So that is something. And the good news is he was at the morning skate. Will we see him on this road trip? I think so. I don't know how soon, but I think
aggressive if it is.
Yeah, I think he's going to make this road trip, and I think for him to make a comeback at some point over the next 11 days wouldn't be without reason. And so I say that because from a personnel standpoint, this is your group. This is who you have. Mm-hmm. There's no one in the minors. There's no one waiting to come up, and there's no one really coming off the IR except Jake Neighbors. This is your group. Now, step number one for Jim has been, well, I'm going to keep reshuffling lines until I find the chemistry. And boy, has he done that. I mean, I don't know if he could do anything more. I mean, Buchnevich
blended this.
Yeah, he has gone through so much. Now, some would argue maybe too much. You know, it's an argument. It's an argument where you don't give players enough time to find chemistry. I know there's a lot of players that feel that across the National Hockey League. Not saying that these Blues players do. I haven't had those conversations with them. But there are players, it's in their DNA where it's like, give me 4 or 5 games with the same guys. Let me figure out some chemistry. Well, Jim Montgomery, he doesn't have a lot of patience for that. He wants to see something. He wants to see it right. And if you're not going to have it, well, he's going to keep moving guys around. Okay, so you go from this is the group we have. Well, I can start shuffling lines. Then I can start healthy scratching guys, which he's done. Mm-hmm. Not just from, you know, the Matthew Josephs and the Oscar Sundquist as players on the bottom 6. We've seen ice time limited for Pavel Buchnevich, Robert Thomas over this past week, and we've seen a complete healthy scratch for Jordan Kyrou, right, who was a potential 40-goal scorer in this league. You know, he's hit 30 multiple times. So all of a sudden, now you're taking away ice time, you're shuffling lines. The next step, I think the next progression, based off of a game like this, and it could be something where this could be the best thing to happen for this team as maybe they go on a run, is you're going to have to see a system change. Something has to change systematically, I think, at this point, because you really don't have any other options.
Right.
You know, is it a different defensive zone structure? Is it more aggressive in the offensive zone? You know, do you go more to a man-on-man? Right now they're playing more of a D zone. Does your neutral zone change? Right? Do you end up wanting to sprint players out and maybe beat other teams with your passes? You know, instead of coming back as a group and going up together. You know, what does the forecheck look like? Does that change? You know, do you keep a guy super high and you end up becoming just super aggressive with the D? You know, it's cowboy hockey. It's high risk, high reward.
Right.
But I just think that as you now approach this road trip, you know, and you're going to have, 5 games now on the road before Thanksgiving, this to me is the time where I think we are going to see some philosophical, systematic changes with this group, because one thing has been very clear, Alex, throughout this first chapter, the systems under this group, through the combinations and the chemistry, to me, it really isn't coming together on a consistent basis. We're having good spurts. You're having good moments with it, but it's 1 or 2 games, then it falls off again. It's good for a game, it's bad for 2. It's good for 3, it's bad for 2. So that's where the consistencies have to shake out, and I really believe that the next progression here really is some form of a systematic change here. And what better way to do it than on the road where it's more thinkless hockey. It's less about matchups, less about who I'm going up against. You get the first change, so you have to just go. Just roll the lines and stop thinking and just go. Especially being on a road where, 5 games, you're out there for a long time before the holiday, an opportunity for the guys to get away from home, get away from, not to say it's a distraction, but just get away from this home sheet for a little while. Just go in the hotel, be with each other, try to figure out some sort of chemistry, camaraderie that maybe can spark this team in the right direction.
So we'll let you go on this one, Joe, because you got a long road trip coming up, and I really appreciate you sticking around. But let me pick a little further on that, because if it is a systematic change, and my guess is you're spot on with this, we've talked about it being whack-a-mole, right? To where one game it's defense, one game it's offense. Tonight it was perimeter hockey. Tonight it was they never got in on Vegas, and Vegas is a big team. If you systematically change offense, it feels like it's still you're asking the players to commit to a style that they haven't really wanted to play consistently. So does it feel like it has to be more of a systematic change on the defensive side?
Yeah.
And maybe that sparks offense?
I think it is defensively. I think that this is a team, I think that everyone has been called upon to play defensive first hockey.
Yeah.
And it's kind of similar to what Drew Bannister did, this time last year, where I remember Pavel Buchnevich after the Islanders game made a comment. This was Drew Bannister's last game. Said it's hard to win games 1-0, 2-1. We're just not getting a lot of offense.
I think he said we don't know what we're doing in the offensive zone.
Right. Now, I don't think that's anywhere near that. I think that this is a very different team. But I think the same issue-ish, let's call it that, is poking its head, where there has been such a focus on defense. And I think it maybe hasn't opened up the top goal scorers the way they have. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Right. They're not getting production from the Thomases and the Buchneviches and the Kairos and the Holloways and the Snuggeroos like they had expected. So something has to give offensively. The game last night where you have all those guys on the board, that has to be, 4 out of 5 games. 6 out of 8. You have to have that. And there's just been too much inconsistencies there. Is it something in the D zone? Is it something of a different structure? I think so. But also I believe that Jim Montgomery is doing the D zone and the systems based off of the personnel he has. Which you keep pulling layers back.
This onion's getting real deep.
It is, but the personnel you have is because the personnel you don't have anymore. And I keep going back to this. I really miss Ryan Suter. I really do. I mean, I think this team doesn't realize how much they miss Ryan Suter.
That's crazy to say about a 40-year-old that you miss him.
But, gosh, he played such a simple game, and he was a veteran guy back there that played smart and steady, and he anchored that bottom pair, and he allowed, he could eat up 16, 17 quality minutes, and that could free up the top 4. He wasn't overcomplicating things. He was just poised and calm. Matthew Kessel, Tucker, Hunter Skinner, Logan Mayu. They're not doing anything wrong. They're learning the game. It takes a couple hundred games to figure that out, right? So you're having these young players have to learn this while making mistakes that's costing their team. I mean, it was a tough couple days for Matthew Kessel.
Yeah.
He ate it last night that led to the 4th goal that got, of course, that group back in distance. And then, of course, his turnover tonight led to the 1st goal.
He got chewed out by Montgomery.
He did. But it's tough. You know what I mean? He's trying to make the right play. He's a young kid. He's trying to find his way in this league. And it's not necessarily on him. So I just say that because, last year that bottom pair was Tyler Tucker and Ryan Suter. Tyler Tucker talked so much about Suter, the communication. They had rules in the D zone, and they didn't get away from those rules. And if ever Tucker did, Ryan Suter would say, don't do that. If you want to survive in this league, do it my way. Trust me. And Tucker did. And that was his best year, which was last year. So there is a presence missing back there. There is wisdom, and there's experience, and there's knowledge that they just don't have anymore. And I think that that's created this idea that you have a young bottom pair, where now you're putting so much pressure on your top 4. The bottom pairs simply are still growing. So now the whole system and the structure from the team standpoint has to change because of maybe some holes that are just, raw. This is green and raw. It is what it is. So that's preventing more offense. I think it's You see what I mean? It's just layers. It's like Shrek. You know, ogres are layers, right? From that movie. It's true that this issue is there are layers there. So it really comes down to, how do you adjust? Ryan Suter's not coming back on this road trip. I don't think he's going to come back anytime soon. I don't imagine him signing another contract, unless Doug Armstrong's got something up his sleeve where, a potential trade where you're bringing an older guy, something that can give you more stability. Maybe it's a Callie Rosen that they call up, who they did pick up in a trade a couple weeks ago. He came from the Washington Capitals. He is in the minors right now. He came up and played meaningful minutes. It wouldn't shock me one bit if we maybe see a Callie Rosen come up here and just provide that kind of Carl Gunnarsson steadiness. Because I think once you have that, then you really can have some system changes, and then you really can find more of an offensive kind of jam to your game, which is what these top 5 guys, especially these top 3 guys with Buchnevich, Kyra, and Thomas, ultimately want to play with.
What about cake? Everyone likes cake. Nobody likes onions.
No one likes onions.
I'm an ogre. Of course I'm an
ogre.
onion. I watch Shrek way too much with my daughter.
It's so good.
Every time she wakes up in the morning, my oldest walks over to Katie and side of the bed. She'll rub her face to wake her up, and she goes, "Mommy, it's morning. Let's make waffles."
They don't waffles. And today, I'm making waffles.
I said, that's a win for Dad right
It's
there.
a heck of a movie,
Joey,
because they figured out how to make a kid laugh, but also an adult laugh on the same joke.
that's a win right there. Have fun on the trip, man.
Thanks, boys.
We'll see you back after Thanksgiving. Joe Vitale, appreciate him sticking around. That is tonight's Ted Drew's 3 takeaways. Ted Drew's, it really is good guys and gals. Let's now hear from Justin Falk.
The soundbite of the night is presented by Rocket Convenience Stores. Fuel your car and your daily cravings at Rocket Convenience Stores.
Earlier than we wanted to, probably the start of the second when they came out, got an early goal. The life on the bench and within the group, definitely. To be honest, there wasn't a ton, and it kind of got drained after that, and ultimately kind of played the rest of the game on autopilot, it seemed.
Justin, the results themselves, obviously you want to see change, but what do you feel like needs to change within the group here?
I mean, ultimately we gotta, it's cliche and easy to say, just put in the work and keep grinding, because besides maybe family and your friends, I don't think anyone really feels sorry for us in this league. As a group, individually, the game moves on. It's not going to wait for us to sit here and find our game, and we have to continue to put the work in and mentally prepare and kind of, I hate to say accept where we're at, but know where we're at, and we have to continue to grind to go up. It's hard. This game is some people say it's very fair. It's no one's going to take a night off, and throughout the league, teams are going to come in every night and make it hard, and that's guys' jobs. Guys are fighting for their jobs every night, and ultimately you have to just continue to grind and put the work in, like I said, because it's evolving and it's going to continue on, and that's the only way to put a stop to it.
Justin, I think you guys went over 18 minutes without a shot on goal. Why has it been so difficult, at least tonight, to generate some offense?
We're not hard enough, probably, on both ends. Not killing plays in the D zone, first and foremost. Probably spending a little too much time letting teams kind of have us in three-quarter ice us. And then at that point, you don't have anything for a forecheck. And on the flip side, when we do have some juice for a forecheck, it seems to be we're pretty light. We're not having them in, and if we are, we're perimeter. We're not taking chances, getting shots to the net and crashing the net and making it hard on the inside. And that same style works on both ends of the ice, and right now it's a struggle for us.
Justin, you used a word like autopilot. Yeah, I'm guessing that guys aren't accepting of what the situation is now. You want to push, but do you feel like that's creeping in a little bit in terms of the team and the players feeling like, okay, maybe this is who we are?
No, I don't think there's, like I said, I didn't want to use the word acceptance. I don't think guys are accepting the fact of where we're at and are just going to roll over and say that's okay. We know it's not acceptable, the standards of this organization and the responsibility we've been given to uphold it, and we have to be better. We have to grind, and guys know that, and Guys are coming to the rink, working every day in practice. It's not like we're going through the motions there or anything like that. I think guys have had a pretty good attitude with practice and knowing that that's a time to get better, and you got to do it, and you got to show up and do what's asked of you. Yeah.
Why do you feel like the desperation level has been inconsistent this season?
It's a tough question to answer. Don't know, but it's not where it needs to be.
You guys have had some good moments on the road. I know it's a big game for you coming up as well. So how do you look at this road trip coming up for you guys?
I mean, listen, hopefully it's a chance to clear our mind a little bit, get away and spend some time together. Ultimately, I do think we have a close group. The guys really enjoy being around each other, and it's our first kind of long road trip of the year, and we'll have that opportunity to kind of maybe flush the mind a little bit and just focus on day to day and get the games going. And it's kind of where we're at. We got to find a way to gel and make something happen. And sometimes it's good to get away and spend some time together.
There you go. That's Justin Falk, and it will be a big game for him on Tuesday. I didn't really mention it, but on the personal side, which I know he doesn't really care about right now, but he'll be the 1,000 games played in the National Hockey League on Tuesday against the Toronto Maple Leafs, which, regardless of how you feel about the player, is still a really cool thing to have, to play 1,000 games in the National Hockey League, especially the position of defenseman when you talk about the beating that they go through. So that was Justin Falk. He had a couple of really impactful quotes, some buzzwords for me. No energy on the bench, not hard enough on pucks, and a little autopilot in that game. So we'll talk more about that. We'll hear from Jim Montgomery. We'll get some of your thoughts on YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL as well, and then we'll have our final look after the Blues fall 4-1 to the Vegas Golden Knights. Alex Ferrario with you on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN.
back to the First Community Credit Union Blues postgame show.
Presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company on 101 ESPN.
Welcome back. Final time here on the fourth period. Extended post-game coverage on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. Always appreciate everyone joining us, whether it's on the radio side, our stream side, over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, where I always love the comments. We had one a little bit ago that said, I wonder what type of spin Alex is going to have on this game tonight. There's no spin. This, and I said it with Joe, this to me is one of the worst losses for the season. It's up there with the Washington Capitals game, and I said it after that Capitals game. That felt like rock bottom of the year. But this one tonight, it started off Vegas controlling the puck, the Blues a little back and forth, but then the moment that puck went in by Brandon Saad, you just felt the Blues start to feel like they were going to chase. They just felt like, uh-oh, and then you take the tripping penalty, power play goal goes in, and then, as Justin Falk said, the bench had no energy. So there's no spin. The team is in a really rough spot right now, and I think the coaching staff is trying to figure out what to do. And frankly, I think a lot of people's reaction is, well, isn't it on the job of the coaches to get this figured out? At some point, it's on the players. At some point, you've mixed every line combination you can go through. You've done everything in practice. You've tried everything in terms of personnel. It's the mindset of the players. And I think Jim Montgomery said it earlier today. Everybody's got to look in the mirror. They had an optional skate today on the second of a back-to-back. And typically, they don't skate on back-to-backs. They did this in the Buffalo game where they did a full practice after they lost to the Washington Capitals. Montgomery essentially said they didn't want to skate in the game, so we'll skate them tonight. And they skated in practice in Buffalo, and then they won that 3-0 shutout. Today he was asked why he had an optional practice, and he said, look, it's the player's option. I don't even know who went out there, but it's on the players to decide what gets them ready for hockey games. And I don't want to say that they weren't ready because, again, it was even in shots before Brandon Saad scored. And we're talking 12 minutes and 52 seconds into the hockey game. The problem was the final 9 minutes of that hockey game, they didn't have a shot on goal. And then the first 8 minutes of the second period, they didn't have a shot on goal. And then the first 9 minutes of the third period, they didn't have a shot on goal. So this is an individual pull themselves out of this, and it's a team thing. You know what Justin Falk said there at the end of that audio piece, we'll hear from Montgomery momentarily. You know, he talked about how maybe this long road trip can be good for the team. Sometimes teams, you know, the Blues used to do this where they had that team bonding road trip before the season would begin. They would go out for a week before they started the season and hope that would build some camaraderie. Maybe they need this. Maybe they need an 11-day road trip that can bring the team together, because if you want to fight in hockey games to win, you got to fight for the guy that's on the ice with you. And tonight, it just did not feel like there was any fight for those pucks. Another one that we got reacting to what Joey was talking about from Blues fan rants over on Twitter, or X, I should say. He said, I can't believe we're talking about how much this team misses 40-year-old Ryan Suter. I understand you can't believe that. There's a reason why it does feel that way. Because they don't have a third pair. Tonight, Matt Kessel and Tyler Tucker played about 11 minutes. Ryan Suter was playing close to 18, 19 minutes a night. And, yeah, was he a liability at times? Sure. Was he a shut-down elite defenseman? Absolutely not. But you know what he was? He was a fifth guy that they could rely on in the third period to play some of those heavy minutes. Right now, when push comes to shove, they don't rely on them. They rely on 3 or 4 guys to go out there in meaningful minutes on the defensive side. And we're 19 games in. That takes a wear and tear on your body when you get to games 50, 60, 70. So is it the reason that this team is 3 games below 500? Absolutely not. Is it part of the reason why the Blues have had 0 success in terms of gaining more confidence for their younger defensive pairs that are learning the game, like Mayu and Tucker and Kessel and Skinner? Yeah, it's part of the reason. And it's part of the reason why you're utilizing your top four so much. And I'm not saying that their play has slipped because of all of the minutes. They can handle these minutes. But you can't handle these minutes for 40 or 50 games, and it does feel like they miss some of that stability on the back end. So just some of my thoughts from some of the comments that we're seeing over on social media. Let's hear from Jim Montgomery after the team's 4-1 loss.
It's time to hear from the head coach, Jim Montgomery, presented by Fisher Window and Door Store, offering quality American-made Marvin windows and doors. Visit their showrooms in Brentwood or East Alton, Illinois.
Paul said after it went 3-0, the group kind of played on autopilot the rest of the game. Did you sense that? Could you feel that a big of an issue in that game?
I don't agree with that. I think we got flat, and that's where we need to have more from our group. There needs to be a better response. I don't like the start of our second period, but that's been most of the season. But I did think that at around the 10-minute mark, we started to play better hockey. We were more connected. We were more physical. The penalty kill was good at we killed that off. And then we got flat again. It's, we need to be better. To a man, we need to have more desperation.
What's the group's confidence level combined right now?
Yeah, I don't think it's high, and it shouldn't be, because we haven't earned the right to have confidence because we're not playing with enough desperation, enough urgency, and we need to correct that, and we will.
You've had detailed practices, you've had healthy scratches, you've had mind changes. What else can you do?
All I know in life is you just work, and you watch film, and you talk to your staff, you talk to your managers, you talk to your leaders, and you keep working together, and you come up with solutions. We might need to change the way we play in certain areas. We tried redefining and making sure that our habits and details are really good, and after a while, definition of insanity is trying to keep doing the same thing and not getting good results. So we might need to try different things.
How much is confidence and energy level connected in your minds?
Well, I think everybody has energy levels like when they start a game. No one goes into a game thinking they're beat. But when things don't go the right way and you're not confident, you tend to stop working the way you should. And that's when you see, like, the first 30 minutes of that game, that was ugly.
Work ethic-wise, do you feel like that's part of the inconsistency, or do you feel like guys are coming in and putting in the work on a regular basis, and at times maybe they're not getting the results, or is the work ethic part of the inconsistency?
Well, I think when things don't go our way, our work ethic suffers. And that's the inner belief, and that's the confidence that you talk about.
18.5 minutes without a shot on goal. Was there anything in particular you were seeing from your guys during that time period?
Yeah, I thought we were doing a lot of staring and watching, and not enough trying to make plays or kill plays.
There you go, Jim Montgomery. I appreciate the honesty there. But, the one thing that he hit on that I want to hit on, because I saw some people in the YouTube chat saying that Joey was making excuses. I think Jim Montgomery just laid out what Joey told you. Look, the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over and getting the same results. They're going to have to change a scheme, something. The part that I find fascinating is what scheme you're changing. I don't think it's anything on the offensive side, because the scheme, and this is going to sound very uneducated on the hockey side of things, because there's got to be schemes that shift through the games. But from a bird's eye view, the scheme for a lot of teams is the same. You go to the front of the net and you score goals. And there's been a lot of perimeter hockey for the Blues. It feels like the scheme that they would need to change is in their own end. And Joe mentioned they've been doing a lot of zone. Maybe they go to man. Maybe that creates, because Jim Montgomery always says, your best defense, or your best chances on the offensive side come from great defensive play. And we've seen that pay off for the Blues. Maybe that's what they change. But I think what Jim Montgomery said there is the right answer, and it's why he's such a great coach. And I know people don't think that's a true statement right now because of the Blues' struggles, but you make a change rather than sit there and just say, well, it's on the players to figure it out. You make a change. I do think part of the problem, though, is the attitude from the players and making sure that you take what Jim Montgomery is saying and you put it into action on the ice. And we'll go to that point for tonight's final look.
It's time to take a look back at tonight's game with the final look.
Driven by Pure Performance. Only stop for all your aftermarket vehicle needs.
The main factor into all of this is the passion from the players. And, you know, I think sometimes people look at it and say the players don't care because the effort's not there on the ice. And it's just something that I just don't, I don't offer anything into because if they didn't care, they wouldn't be out there playing. But there is a difference of effort and not trying versus putting in that extra effort to win board battles and win puck battles. And that tonight is what, to me, really took the Blues out of this. I mean, the moment that second goal went in, you heard Jim Montgomery and Justin Falk all say, no energy, a lot of watching the puck, not as much a hard physical push for loose pucks. And Justin Falk also said it was kind of autopilot, waiting for the game to come to them. At some point, you're going to have players go out there and take the game in their own hands. You know, we were making a couple of really good references up here in the broadcast booth and just trying to make analogies of kind of what's going through. And it's kind of like it's kind of like being the second voice on a radio show, you know? Like, some people are the ones that initiate the conversation. Some people are the ones that are great at answering and being brought into the conversation. It feels like the Blues have a lot of guys that are great at being brought into the game. But you need the guy that goes out there and takes the game from the opposition. It's something that the Blues have struggled with. Maybe a change of scheme can fix that. But as Jim Montgomery has referenced, it's maturity, it's consistency, and it's confidence. And all areas the Blues have just been lacking. You hope they can find it once they go out on this road trip. And to go out on the road trip may mean nothing. You may come back from it with very little success. But from the coaching standpoint, just something change for change's sake. You go out, you play some tough opponents, hope that you can find some type of spark. Maybe they'll find their Gloria in that Philly bar once again. You hope you could find something that the players can rally around and start to fight for each other on the ice, because when that happens, you get that camaraderie, and then you start to see a little bit more of a push from the Blues. It starts on Tuesday when they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. That game on Tuesday night, puck drop at 6 o'clock with a pregame beginning at 5 o'clock here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate everybody hopping on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, and of course listening on their drive home on 101 ESPN. A huge shout out once again to our great producer Jordan Deacon back in our studios, to Jim Hewer, our broadcast engineer up in our broadcast booth, and to Grant Francis doing a great job taking care of us down in the Blues locker room. Once again, I'm Alex Ferrario. Hope everyone has a great rest of their night. Great weekend. Blues fall to the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1. Back at it on Tuesday to start the 11-day road trip, and we'll have all the coverage for you right here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN.